program. Let's begin this morning on the top of the board, line number one. Good morning, Todd Churchill. You're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I tell you, Wednesday was such a rush of emotions. It's quite I can't even describe the emotions of myself and Kim on Wednesday, to be honest with you. I can't put it in words.
Well, I mean, after a 6-year battle on behalf of Carter, I suppose it all comes in many forms: relief, vindication, and exhaustion.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I said to we were talking to another media outlet a couple of days ago, and I mean, we're just broken. We're just broken down people. This is really taking a toll on us. And after the hearing ended last year on the 9th of September, I tried to explain to my parents. My parents know me really well, and I tried to verbalize to them what we'd gone through, and I couldn't even explain to them, like, you really have to have lived it. What we were put through and what our son was put through by the English school district. And quite frankly, I'll be blunt, their only card to play was to try to financially cripple us, because they knew they had no case, they had no defense. So they thought if they bankrupted us, we'd give up. And I don't think they've ever run into a pair of parents like us before. And, it was testimony at the hearing where a person from a staff member at the department made the statement, and she was challenged on a past statement she had made where she laughed and said, human rights complaints never go anywhere. And I think that was the attitude. I think they thought they had a sense of impunity, that no one would ever go through what we went through. And I think we really shocked them that we did it.
I'm sure you did. So, beyond the sense of relief or how you and Kim feel, what does this mean in realistic terms for the district and the focus that we can now renew in education? Because the inclusive model just doesn't work like it's intended to. Conceptually, fantastic. In reality, not necessarily working. I know lots of families that have issues with the school district and in their own schools about, they go back to school the next year and the accommodation that their son or daughter needed and had in place last year isn't in place when they go back. So what do you think this means in broad terms? Not just for deaf children, but for children who just need some special supports.
Well, I think the first thing is it brings accountability to the district. They were finally held to account for their failings. And for deaf education specific, it puts on record the discrimination of my son for 4 years at Beachy Cove Elementary, a school where over the course of those years we begged, we pleaded, we met with the school administration, which I might add is still the same school administration today. And we were met with platitudes like, I'm just playing the cards dealt to me. I mean, that was the attitude of the principal at Beachy Cove Elementary. And it is really rewarding and vindicating to find out that at his school, his school has now been, found to have discriminated against our son. So to have that permanent record, and I mean, we know of other families, for example, there's a family in New Brunswick. They have a human rights complaints for the same sort of issues, and they're going to use Carter's case as a precedent for their case. So the hope is it's going to make other families fighting the same battle, make their challenges so much easier, because now there's a precedent.
Is it working better for Carter and his fellow classmates at East Point?
It's the third year there. The first year was really good, but since then it's gone a little bit downhill because, as it came out at the hearing, the district does not proficiency test teachers. So right now, one of the two teachers in the classroom with Carter can't actually sign very well, and that's something that came out at the hearing. So I think we can't say, well, East Point is perfect and everything's fixed and everything's good. There's still a lot of challenges there, and I still think we have to keep the feet of the district to the fire, and we will do that. I mean, if they think that this is just going to go through a news cycle and they're going to weather the storm and it's going to be all over, it's not. I mean, our advocacy will never stop.
Is there more to it than simply the teachers being proficient in American Sign Language?
It's definitely a big part of it. I mean, just imagine, I challenge any parent of a hearing child to think about if their child went to school this morning and had a teacher that didn't speak English. I mean, that's a pretty critical element to be able to communicate with the child. I mean, there's not much education or learning or development of language can happen if the teacher can't communicate with the child. So that's a major thing. Now, the good thing about East Point is deaf children are brought together, or children that require American Sign Language are brought together into the same classroom. I mean, he has the inclusion at East Point that he never had at Beachy Cove. At Beachy Cove, he was one of 750 children. He was the only deaf child. He was totally isolated. And as came out at the hearing from his deaf student assistant, Carter was just ignored. He was just there. And that's what passes for inclusion in our province. It's shameful. And I really hope that Andrew Furey is finally going to take responsibility and accountability. Government always says we are accountable. Well, show that accountability. Stand up and say, we got this one wrong. We did wrong by that child, and we are going to own it. And if they don't, I think it speaks volumes of Andrew Furey as a premier and volumes of his government.
And it's one thing for Carter and fellow classmates at East Point to have this setup, even if there is still a shortcoming with one teacher not very proficient in American Sign Language. And I don't know how to ask this question. I'm going to try my best, and I know you will receive this as a well-intentioned question. Could this example, and of course, let me add to it, of course, East Point is only one class with 8 kids. There's people around the province who need these accommodations, and they don't get them either. So it's bigger than just one classroom here.
Absolutely. Sorry to interrupt. You're totally correct. I mean, we had parents reach out to us during the hearing. We had a parent in central Newfoundland who says that their child is in a school where nobody has any ASL. The child gets supported sporadically once a week or something like that, from an hour away from school, an hour away, and that's all the support the child gets. The rest of the time, there's no ASL. So this is a systemic problem, and the adjudicator in his ruling said as much, that this is a systemic problem. So it really behooves the government to do something about this. One of the things people don't know is that Andrew Furey, when he ran for the Liberal leadership, actually met with us. We actually requested a meeting with him and John Abbott. And Andrew Furey came to my house, sat in my lawn chair on my deck, and we told him for an hour all the problems. That was almost 3 years ago. So he knows what the problem was. He made a point of explaining that he had a child just like Carter, the same age as a matter of fact, went to Beachy Cove, the same as Carter, in the same grade. And I bet Andrew Furey's experience at Beachy Cove was much different than my experience at Beachy Cove. And his son's experience was much different than my son's experience. So I challenge Andrew Furey to explain why his son deserves the experience he had, but my son does not. And I have to spend $93,000 to prove that.
Todd, I'm still struggling to craft this question. I'm just going to ask it, even if it's clumsy, and I know it's not ill-intentioned. I mean, would things be better, not only for Carter, but for other children, if we stopped pretending that inclusive education worked, and that, the closure of the school for the deaf was a mistake and should be reopened so that we can avoid this at all costs for every other student who needs this type of American Sign Language education? Does that question make sense? Do you know where I'm trying to go?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. Like, people have asked me over the years, would that solve the problem if the school for the deaf opened again? And it's a difficult one, because for Carter, it would probably be a good idea because we live within driving distance of the school for the deaf, or where it used to be. But if you are in Wabush or you're in Corner Brook, you would have to make the hard decision: does my child get an education, or does my child, grow up with his or her family? I mean, that is. I mean, I can't imagine a parent making that decision. That is to not see your children for the vast majority of the year. That's a heck of a choice to make. So, I don't think that the school for the deaf model was perfect either. I think maybe a hybrid, where maybe you had a centralized school and it radiated out into satellite classrooms. I mean, that's the thing that was talked about at the hearing. The teachers had made proposals about having satellite classrooms. I mean, the model of East Point, it could be in other places. For example, Corner Brook could have a satellite classroom to bring in children from that area that require American Sign Language, or Grand Falls, or Marystown, or Clarenville. Bigger centers that would bring in children from a certain reasonable radius. I mean, the model could work.
Todd, I suppose the word is congratulations, and hopefully this does bring about not only the vindication, but a better future, and not only for Carter, but for everybody else, whether it be in this province or across the country. We owe everybody who's in the K-12 system a fighting chance at a quality education regardless. And hopefully this goes a long way to ensuring that that happens. I really appreciate your time. Say hello to Kim and Carter for me, and thank you for this.
Yeah, will do. And one thing I'd make a simple request for the people listening. I'd ask people to go to our Facebook page called Deaf Children Matter and just follow the page. It doesn't cost anything. It's a simple thing, but that would be a great show of solidarity and support for Carter and other deaf children, for people to go on that Facebook page and just follow the page. And I'd really love for people to do that.
Thanks for this, Todd. Stay in touch.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye. That's a pretty big deal, and of course it is absolutely centered on Carter and Kim and Todd Churchill and what they've done here and the victory they've achieved in this human rights case. But I do think the conversation gets extended, and rightfully so, throughout the entirety of K-12 and for supports that need to be in place. I mean, when you hear Todd Churchill describe Carter's experience at his first school at Beachy Cove, and basically was just there in body, sitting in silence, day in, day out. Let's go ahead and take a break. When we come back, the topic is absolutely up to you.